Well, good morning. My name is Judy. I'm the lifestyle coordinator at Everly Short Pump. We are a Everly building that is still in pre-leasing. We're hoping to be open in August. And for right now, we are in our leasing center. Behind me, as you can see, is a rendering of our first floor. So, my addition to some activities for our residents of Overtures and Everly's is I'm going to be doing a Good News Network broadcast and sharing some good news stories that I hope everyone finds interesting. There is commenting at the bottom. If you care to comment on any of the stories and start a discussion, I'd love to have you join me on discussing what the stories are. As you can tell, I'm not a professional, so bear with me as I learn my way through Facebook Live. So let's get started on our first story. It is the title is An Unbelievable Act of Kindness. Customer left a $2,500 tip for restaurant staffers before they closed up shop. This is from March 17th. A team of restaurant servers was left crying tears of joy after they discovered one of their patrons had left them a massive tip prior to their closure amid the COVID-19 shutdown. The Coach's Bar and Grill of Columbus, Ohio, had been preparing to close up shop on Sunday after Governor Mike DeWine ordered all the restaurants and bars to limit their service to delivery and carry-out options as a means of limiting potential infections. Despite how Coach's restaurant owner Benny Leonard says the order may prove to be a cause of concern in his business, he and his staffers were particularly heartened by a note that was left by one of the regular customers. The patron, a middle-aged man who insisted on remaining anonymous, left a $2,500 tip on a bill totaling just $29.75. In addition to requesting his identity remaining a secret, he also asked for the hefty gratuity to be divided equally amongst the restaurant's 5 servers. There were tears of joy, Leonard told the news, an unbelievable act of kindness on a pretty weird day. Let's go to another story. This is from October of last year. On his 95th birthday, Jimmy Carter is still proving age is no obstacle as he builds homes for humanity. Today is the 95th birthday of the former U.S. President Jimmy Carter, and despite how he has not served in office for almost 4 decades, he is still working tirelessly to improve the country. Born on October 1st, 1924, Carter has now lived longer than any other United States president in history. The title used to be held by the late George H.W. Bush before he passed away in November of 18 at 94 and 171 days old. Even though Carter made headlines back in March for surpassing Bush's record of 94 years and 172 days, this is not his first news appearance in the last few years. Carter, who is also one of the few American presidents to have ever received the Nobel Peace Prize, was recently responsible for creating a new health clinic in a small town that had been without a physician for 4 months. He leased out a portion of his own property in order to launch a solar farm powering half of his hometown, and his charity has been a major contributor to making guinea worms the second disease ever to be eradicated. Additionally, Carter was diagnosed with stage 4 melanoma in 2016 And even though he was undergoing treatment, he still spent his time building homes for the needy through Habitat for Humanity. Thankfully, his immunotherapy treatments proved to be successful, and he was declared cancer-free several months later. Carter and his wife Rosalind have volunteered for the housing organization for 36 years, during which time they have helped build thousands of homes. Furthermore, they now plan on celebrating Mr. Carter's birthday by attending yet another annual Habitat for Humanity construction event in Nashville next week. Both President and Mrs. Carter are determined to use their influence for as long as they can to make the world a better place. Their tireless resolve and heart have helped to improve the lives of millions of the world's poorest people, and Carter said, the Carter Center spokesperson in a statement. That story, for me, is just amazing for a gentleman who is 95 years old and still finding a way as a past president to give back to the country and to his hometown. To me, that's amazing. All right, let's try. Here's another one. This is the title of this one is After Rural Pizzeria Burnt Down to the Ground, Dozen of Amish Folks Rally to Repay Their Kindness. A compassionate pizzeria owner had a reputation for ensuring that his Amish neighbors never went hungry. So, when his rural restaurant later burned down, they were sure to repay their debt. Just before Christmas in 2013, Delta Pizza burned to the ground. It was a big deal in the tiny hamlet of Delta, Pennsylvania. The remote town of about 700 people on the Maryland border doesn't have a lot of options when it comes to places to eat. Then something magical happened. We were cleaning up and I heard this noise outside like a train was coming through, said Sal Ferrante, the owner since his grandfather's Giuseppe died in 1999. It was 30 Amish men in buggies. They helped for one day with the demolition of the building. As it turns out, they were returning the favor. For years, Sal had been making sure that extra food from catering jobs would make it to the Amish folks that needed it. In fact, the whole town pitched in to help Sal reopen. They were paying him back too, for his family's 30 years of serving charity and kindness along with their slices. On snow days, kids gathered to eat free pizza and watch cartoons until their parents would get home from work. About 2 times a month, people gathered for fundraisers for various causes, all while enjoying donated pizza, of course. Recently, Sal came across a homeless man in town, and after publishing just one Facebook post, he later got a job and had a place to stay. That's just the kind of guy Sal is, said Deborah Shade, who nominated Delta Pizza for the Nicest Places competition. Anybody that comes to him with any kind of request, he's there for them. Turns out he learned a lot of it from his dad. In 1984, when his family arrived from Italy, they had nothing and they didn't know the language. After getting citizenship in 1987, Giuseppe bought flags for every flagpole in town. And they fly to this day. It was Giuseppe who started holding fundraisers, getting involved in civic life, and making sure to help anyone who needed it. So, after Delta Pizza's grand opening in 2015, Sal knew he had to continue his father's compassionate legacy. That's why each year he chooses a different Amish family who helped with the demolition and spends 2 hard days laboring on their farms, picking tomatoes or tobacco or whatever else they need. They are so giving and so helping. I have to give back to them and to everyone who helps, Sal said. Having lived in an Amish community in Indiana, it is awesome to see the 2 cultures helping each other in this story. So I hope you enjoyed that one. And on a similar note, this town was also nominated as one of the nicest places in the United States. The title of this article is, When This Town Helped Women Struggling with Addiction Getting Back on Their Feet, They Repaid the Favor. In 2012, Patty O'Malley and her son were going through recovery of an opioid addiction together when her son relapsed and drove his car off a bridge just 5 miles from their home in Abilene, Kansas. When she lost him, she knew she had to do something. I began to reach out to other women saying, let's talk about addiction, O'Malley says. She opened her home to a group of women suffering with substance abuse themselves. Then she did the unimaginable. She gave her home to the women in her group. They needed a place to stay after completing the 30-day rehab program. The only place they know to go back to after rehab is where they've come from, O'Malley said. Now we take them door to door from rehab to Cedar House. O'Malley built herself a new home while turning what would become Cedar House into a 6-bed facility that focuses on hope, healing, and giving back to the surrounding community. Abilene, a rural county, a cattle yard town of some 7,000, famous for being the childhood home of President Dwight D. Eisenhower. Cedar Home now boasts a local food bank and a micro farm with a greenhouse, which delights locals with exotic flora. They have brought things to Kansas that most have never tried to grow, said resident Loressa. They grow banana plants and loofahs that you use when you shower. And they're growing one more thing to the delight of all, puppies. Cedar House has started breeding a rare giant breed of dog that looks like a Saint Bernard crossed with a lion. It's called a Leon Bergener. They're known for being affectionate, and the litters are being turned into therapy dogs for other women in service organizations. One of the puppies was recently presented to Thistle Farms in Nashville, an organization that provides safe housing and employment for women involved in prostitution, trafficking, and addiction. The whole organization is amazing, says Danny Moore, the Cedar House resident. When I started here a year and a half ago, I didn't have a voice. I didn't know what my purpose was on earth. Patty listens to everything, and she's such a strong woman. Love heals. And I will leave you with one more. This is a Jimmy Fallon segment. Jimmy Fallon asked Twitter to describe their quarantine in 6 words. And the results are hilarious. So we'll leave you with a little chuckle. Heeding health official orders to stay in your house, you may be at this point telling inside jokes. Ha ha. But with his 51 million fans on Twitter, Jimmy Fallon was able to pull in responses from all over the globe. For his Tonight Show hashtag segment, even though he is stuck at home, he got some of the funniest responses to date. While sheltering in place, Fallon has begun to produce homemade episodes for YouTube, calling them Tonight Show at Home Edition. They feature camera work by his wife and occasional segments by his 2 young daughters. Not only is he raising people's spirits, he's also raised tens of thousands for different charities each day, starting with feedingamerica.org. For his home edition of hashtags, Jimmy tweeted to fans asking them to describe their quarantine in 6 words. Fallon kicked off his hilarious social media trend by describing my quarantine in 6 words. His was, fine, you can paint daddy's nails. Here are some other of the responses. Yes, Netflix, I'm still watching. Day 1, ate all the snacks. Another one, a longest day of my life every day. This woman is homeschooling her kids, expelled my kids from homeschool. Another one, flattening the curve, fattening my curves. That one I think we can all relate to. Funyuns for dinner. Okay, breakfast too. Is 7 Hot Pockets too many? Another one, there's not enough wine for this. And one more, very close to befriending a volleyball. What would be your tweet about your time at home in 6 words? I'd have to think about mine, but I will, and I'll post it later. I hope y'all enjoyed a good news segment, and this will be weekly, Monday mornings, and I hope you join me next week. Thanks again from Everly Short Pump, and see you next week.